What is up, guys? Welcome back here again. Today we are looking at this video. So, why no one can afford to live in Australia anymore? So, why is that? I don't know. I didn't even know Australia was an expensive place, to be honest, but let's actually see the video, see what we have. This video is by Explained with Dom. Link to original video will be below in the description if you want to check that out after you watch this video. So yeah, let's check it out, guys.
Australia is one of the richest countries in the world, with
Richest
one of the
in the
highest
world,
average
wow.
wages, and also one of the emptiest, with just 3 people per square kilometer. A simple logic should dictate that with a wealthy population and vast empty spaces, it should also have abundant and affordable housing. But in reality, it's the exact opposite.
That's actually pretty weird, to be honest.
Australia has one of the least affordable housing in the world, and it has been going through a devastating housing crisis that keeps getting worse and worse.
Seriously? I did
Sydney,
not
the
expect
capital,
that.
is now the second most unaffordable city after Hong Kong, and 3 other major Australian cities are in the top 20. And the problem is that this crisis is not going anywhere, because Australia has locked itself, its housing market, and its economy into a trap of its own making that it can't really get out of, and that's going to be increasingly more painful to be in. So this is why no one can
Interesting.
afford to live in Australia anymore. But first, you might want to hear about the paid partner of this video, which is BetterHelp.
Let's
What
skip
BetterHelp
that.
does is to connect you with a credentialed therapist who's there to listen. Think you can benefit from therapy? Back to the video.
Okay.
But first, let's explain how important housing is to Australians. Because while having a home is important for everyone, in the land down under, it's literally part of the national identity.
Isn't it
Since the
amazing that they
1950s,
have so many
owning a home,
trees?
or rather a house, has been the ultimate sign that you made it. A symbol of stability, security, and affluence. While the American dream was about getting to the top with nothing but your hard work, in the Australian version, or the Great Australian Dream, what gets you there is not so much hard work, but rather owning a house. And
Okay.
according to polls, for 75% of Australians, this is still very much the idea. But unfortunately, that Australian dream is now as dead as it could be.
The
at
Australian
least for
dream
most
is
people.
gone
And
dead.
to show why, let's explain how unaffordable housing in Australia has actually become. In 1970, the average nationwide salary was $4,200 per year, and
Per
the
year?
average house price
Damn.
in Sydney was $18,700. And so you needed to save up 4.5 years of an average salary.
Okay, that was in
to buy an
1970s
house.
though, so
Since then, the average salary went up quite a lot, and it's now at $74,000. So it's 17 times higher than 50 years ago.
okay, that's
Which
per
is
year.
great, except that in the meantime, the average house price in Sydney went all the way up to somewhere around 1.5 million.
No,
80 times
1.5 million. Oh my
higher than back
goodness.
then. And so
That's
now
80
you would
times
use to
the
save
price.
your entire annual salary for more than 20 years to buy an average house.
That's
which
insane,
in the
bro.
meantime would likely increase in price anyway. And it's not just Sydney, but basically all the major Australian cities are showing a similar trend. And while that's great if you bought a property back then and kept it till now, because that was probably the best investment
That
you
is
could
true.
ever make, it also makes it extremely unaffordable for everyone else. Today, an Australian household that earns $105,000 can only comfortably afford 13% of homes on the market. And even the people that can afford to buy a property have to take on a huge mortgage to do so, which is why Australian households have one of the largest debts in the world. And while homes have been getting progressively more expensive over the past 5
That's
decades,
stupid
the pace
though,
really
like-
picked up since the year 2000.
What do
and
people
even
actually
more in
do
the
for
past
this?
5 years. And today, Sydney is the second most unaffordable city, second only to Hong Kong, and 4 of the largest Australian cities that are home to roughly 60% of Australia's
But to be honest, I think this is a problem around the whole world. Like, even young people, even myself, like, how can you go get a house when prices are this high and your salary is like this? I mean, it's so hard, like, these days to actually own a house. Even if you get a loan and things like that, you still have to pay for, like, the rest of your life. So, I don't know what is going to happen, but it does suck, bro.
population are in the top 20. The average household now needs 10 years to save up for 20% down payment on an average house.
For the
But
loan.
since the house price will likely increase much faster than their income, it's possible that it would take them much longer than that, or that they will never actually be able to save up enough money.
Yeah.
And so the country where home ownership has always been the main priority is now also a country where buying a house is basically impossible for the majority of people. But why is that? Well, the good news is that it wouldn't have to be that way, and Australia could fix this trend. But the bad news is that that's probably not gonna happen, and the situation is instead gonna get a lot worse. So let's explain. So the reasons for Australia's housing crisis are actually stupidly simple, and
But look at that. Doesn't that look beautiful? Like the houses on the water.
Supply and demand.
Those are pretty
We said
expensive
that
for sure.
Australia, being such a large country, should naturally have an abundance of cheap land to build cheap homes on. Even if we take away the inland part of Australia that's mostly empty and not well suited for life, the Australian coastline where most people live is still much bigger than most of Europe. But the problem is that in Australia, unlike in most places, an overwhelming majority of people are concentrated in just a very few places.
Yep,
Almost
that is
90%
true.
of Australians live in cities. 72% live in the few major ones, and over 40% live in just the two largest. In other words, even though Australia is huge and land supply should be
And guys, like in Australia, I do like people live around the border of Australia, right? Like close to the beach and things like that. Like I don't think there's many people living in the center of Australia. There probably is, but it's not a big population for sure.
almost unlimited, almost everyone wants to live in the same tiny area of a few major cities, where the supply of available land is naturally limited. And since the rate of urbanization in Australia keeps going up, this is only going to get worse. But even if everyone wants
Wow.
to live in the same few places, it should still be a manageable issue. Except that the large Australian cities are doing everything they can to make it completely impossible. If you have a limited space and potentially unlimited number of people who want to live there, you would probably want to make that place as dense as possible. But that's the opposite of what's happening. Instead of building dense neighborhoods that can actually house a lot of people, the large Australian cities are building single-family homes and ever more sprawling suburban neighborhoods. But the problem is that you just can't build enough of those to accommodate all the people that are moving into those cities, as there just isn't enough available land. Melbourne has already spread out over an area that's 6 times larger than London, despite having
Jeez.
roughly half of its population. But even so, there aren't enough homes being built. And so
Yeah.
the supply side is even more limited. And on the other hand, the demand is getting bigger and bigger. And while this is affected by a number of factors, from favorable tax breaks that incentivize buying investment property to low interest rates that make it easy to borrow money to do that, at the end of the day, the growing demand comes down to growing population. More people naturally need more homes to live in, and Australia is having a lot more people every year.
This guy
Most of it
is
thanks to immigration.
talking facts
Country
here.
With a population of 26
Like,
million,
this guy,
employs
bro.
roughly 400,000 people per year, which means that the population of Australia has been growing almost twice as fast as in Canada or the United
Okay.
States.
It seems like this guy actually knows his facts. Let me know if you think I'm wrong here, like about the video, like facts and stuff. But man,
And 4 times faster than in France or the Netherlands.
okay.
This might sound like a rant against immigration, but that couldn't be further
Beautiful
from
city, by the way.
I'm a big proponent of economic immigration. Attracting large numbers of qualified, educated, and hardworking immigrants is how countries get rich. And Australia has been actually approaching immigration in a fairly pragmatic way, despite the large numbers, thanks to its immigration system that's only letting
Immigration.
in people that have the exact qualification the country needs at a given moment. And so it has been able to leverage immigration for the maximum economic benefit. But nevertheless, having such high levels of immigration naturally stimulates the demand for more housing. In other words, if you want to have a lot of people coming in, you need to be able to build enough homes for them.
Okay.
And Australia is massively failing at that. And unfortunately for Australians, it's most likely not going to get better. The only way out of this crisis is to balance the demand and supply, which would either mean massively restricting its immigration or hugely increasing how many homes Australia is building. But neither is likely to happen. On the demand side, Australia cannot really decrease the immigration, or at least not in any significant way, because its economy is dependent on it. Australia needs the labor force to keep its most important industries working. It needs international students to keep coming in and paying their university fees to sustain the education sector. And it needs the ever-increasing number of consumers for the economy to keep growing. By 2050, Australia is projected to have 38 million people, and the migrants will be a key driving force of the economy.
So
And according to
everything
this
literally
study, it's the
rises
high
every
immigration
single
that
year.
affected the Australian economy for 3 decades, from recessions that damaged Europe or the US. In other words, Australia's future survival is clearly dependent on maintaining high levels of qualified immigration, and without it, its economy would almost certainly suffer. And so the only other option is to simply build more in the few cities where everyone wants to live, and that means building much more high-density housing and less single-family homes. But
I
that's
see
very
how.
unlikely to happen, mostly because Australians actually don't want that. The Australian dream of everyone owning a house is still very much alive, because
Yeah.
the demand on the market is still
I
massive.
see the way they're thinking with this.
And the
Like,
number of permits given out for high-density housing is actually going down, while
bro, like everyone wants a house for sure. Like, rather than living in an apartment, having all the, I don't know, neighbors left, right, on top of you, underneath of you. I mean, having a house, like, it's a dream for everyone for sure. Like, come on, bro.
Australia is not building nearly enough homes that it would need. In other words, the desire for the traditional symbol of success is not going anywhere. But with less space and more people, it will become increasingly more expensive, making housing more costly and less affordable for
Wow,
everyone.
that is unreal, man. That is literally unreal. Wow, guys, that was an interesting video, to be honest. Like, bro, I'm actually surprised by the pricing they actually have the houses at. I mean, that 1.5 million to get a house, man, that is out of the world, bro. Jeez, like nowadays things just get harder and harder for everyone. Anyway, guys, with that interesting video done, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Hope you all enjoyed. If you did, guys, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel. We'll see you on the next one. Peace out, guys.